It was my senior year at the University of Richmond. I would be graduating in the spring of 1971 with a BA degree in speech and drama. Oh, I had had the best senior year. During the first semester, I had played the role of Mrs. Gibbs in Thornton Wilder's play, Our Town. When that was over, I played a part in a one-act play, and now, second semester, I was going to play the role of Miss Prism in Oscar Wilde's play, The Importance of Being Earnest. I was having the best time. I just loved being a drama major and taking all the courses belonging to the university players. 2, the only problem was I kept having all these headaches on the left side of my head. I couldn't figure that out. The left side of my head hurt, but the right side of my head felt just fine. I would have these headaches mostly at night. Now, I tried I tried taking some Anacin tablets. Anacin was very popular among my family during the 50s, 60s, and the 60s. But the Anacin tablets didn't seem to help at all. At night, sometimes I would have to sleep with a heating pad on the left side of my head just to try to ease some of the pain. Oh, what if I had these pains when I had rehearsal for The Importance of Being Earnest? Oh, you didn't miss a rehearsal for any reason. And worse yet, what if I had these pains when I was having a performance? This was awful thinking about. But to my amazement, the nights that I had rehearsal, I never had any pains on the left side of my head. Well, that's weird. I've never been that nervous about rehearsal that I had a headache. And by the time the performance arrived, I didn't have a headache either of the nights. Well, hooray, I had conquered that. I had overcome those darn headaches and they'd gone away. I graduated with my class of 71. We had a big graduation there in the city of Richmond, and afterward, Mama, Daddy, my younger sister Julia, and younger brother Bob and I all drove back to our home in Martinsville, Virginia. While I was there, I had to prepare for a job that I had landed at the end of my senior year. I was going to teach drama, speech, and English for a school right outside of Richmond, and I had to prepare for those courses. I also had to prepare furniture and things like that to come back because I was going to be moving into an apartment with a college friend of mine. During June, though, I began having problems keeping my eyes shut at night. Oh, was that annoying? I would reach up and try to hold my eye down, but because I had my arm up like this, I couldn't go to sleep. So I went to see my ophthalmologist, Dr. Henry Campbell. Now, that's Campbell, Campell. There's no B in it. Like for soup, you just say Campbell. Dr. Campbell was medium height, losing some of his hair on the top, always wore a white medical jacket. I never saw him without one. He checked my eyes over thoroughly, and then he said to me, Frances, I don't know why you are having the problem with keeping your eyes shut at night, and your left eye seems to be a little on the numb side too. Is that right? Yes, I agreed. It is. My eye is numb. I don't know what it is either, Dr. Campbell. He said, well, I want for you to go down to Duke University, which was where he went to medical school, and I want for you to see the head of neurosurgery there, Dr. Guy Odom. Well, this kind of shook me up. Of course, it was a Friday afternoon. Bad things always seem to happen on Friday afternoon. And then you have to wait all weekend, and so you can worry about it all Saturday and all Sunday. On Monday morning, Mama drove me the 2 hours down to Durham, North Carolina, to Duke, and I saw Dr. Guy Odom there. He was the head of the neurosurgery department and had been for many years at Duke. He was a tall man and very much in charge. You could tell because he had residents who followed him around everywhere. But Dr. Odom did most of the talking himself. Occasionally, a resident would venture a comment, but not very often. Dr. Odom said, I want for you to stay for several days and have some tests. All right, I agreed. So I checked into the hospital, and Mama checked into a hotel that was nearby. The first couple of days of tests were fairly easy. I didn't have really any problem with them, and the problem was they didn't really show up anything. So the next day, I had a harder test, and it took me a few hours to recover from that test. That didn't show up anything either. Finally, by Wednesday, Dr. Odom came into my hospital room, and he said, Frances, we have not been able to tell what the problem is yet, but I want for you to take a test called a pneumoencephalogram. Pneumoencephalogram. Oh, that is the best test that we have at this time. Remember, this was 1971. You'll take this test tomorrow morning. The orderlies will come and get you and take you to this test. All right, I said. The next morning they did so and took me downstairs in a wheelchair to the room where they performed this test. The technician said to me, now, I want for you to sit on the stool right here in front of the machine, and we will do the test then. He went on to say, now, I am going to insert a needle into the base of your spine, and what we are going to do is to blow air up your spine, and when it reaches your head, it will light up your brain, and we will take pictures then. All right, I agreed. Sounded a bit ominous to me, but I didn't have any choice but to go along with it. He did so. The first couple of times it didn't hurt, but by the time he had done this and had inserted the air 9 or 10 times, it felt like someone had a sledgehammer and was hitting me over the head each and every time he did that. When he finished, the nurses laid me back down on the gurney, and the man took me back to my room, slipped me into my bed, and the nurse said to me, you are to lie down almost flat. You may have a pillow under your head, and this has to be for at least 24 hours. If you sit up in the bed, you will become ill, and you certainly cannot get out of the bed. All right, I said. I waited and lasted through the afternoon, the evening, the night, and most of the next day. And by late afternoon of the next day, I could finally sit up. And then I could slowly get out of the bed and move around. Dr. Odom came into the room and said to me then, Frances, we have checked the pneumoencephalogram, and we cannot see anything that is wrong within your head that may be causing this numbness. Now, you must remember that at that time, all of the tests that they had were two-dimensional. So they could not see things from the side, only from the front. He went on to say, now I want you to go home with your mother, and if any of these problems come back, I want for you to come back and see me again. Yes, I thought, I'm certainly going to do that, and maybe go through these tests again. So, Mama and I packed up, took the things home. It took me a few days to have just the nagging headache from that awful, awful test go away. And I continued getting ready for school. Moved back to Richmond in August and started school the day after Labor Day. I have never worked as hard in my life as I did that first year teaching school. I spent hours planning drama, speech, and English courses. Oh, I just had to work so hard to stay even 1 or 2 days ahead of my students. I noticed at that time that these 3 fingers of mine were a little bit numb, and so was my right foot. I had trouble holding the chalk to write on the blackboard and holding my pen to grade their papers, and I had to be careful when I was walking around because I could trip. It's hard when you have a numb foot. I kept on going. I checked this out with my doctors, my regular doctors. I didn't tell them everything because I didn't want them to send me back to Duke or to any other hospital where I might have to take those awful tests again. And the doctors ventured a few things. Well, you're anemic. Well, you may just be imagining this. Some people do, and so it may all be in your head. Well, I listened to all that and just kept on going. I taught school. I taught a second semester. During the second semester, I directed the play, Our Town. I had just loved that play so much when I was in it in college. Each time the stage manager would say the line, "This time, 9 years have gone by, friends," tears would come to my eyes because, in a way, it felt as if 9 years had gone by for me, even though it had been fewer than 3 years. I had to struggle to just keep going each day, to be able to write, to be able to walk, to grade their papers, to just come back to school each day. By the end of the second year, though, I decided I am not going to just teach school full-time. I want to be a play director full-time. I'm going to graduate school. So I applied to several schools, and I decided on Ohio University in Athens, Ohio. They had a directing program there that was an MFA program, so I went to it. This was 1973 by the time I went to it. By then, my fingers were even more numb, and my handwriting was almost illegible. I had to type everything that I turned in the way of a paper. My foot was numb. You know, it was more numb than it had been before, and stepping up on the curb was hard. You know, we don't really realize how easy it is to do a lot of the things, and we take them for granted, such as writing and walking and being able to take a step up the stairs or the curb, but it was harder and harder for me. I finished that first year, and then I went to the director's colloquium. This was a 1-month colloquium for professional directors and people who were interested in directing. We met at Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas. 8 professional directors, some of them from New York City, some of them from various professional theaters around the United States, came in, each for 3 days, and each would talk about methods they used, things that worked for them, things that didn't, how they worked with actors, and they staged a few scenes for us to watch. And we were interested to ask them about their methods of directing. It was a wonderful experience. When I got home, though, I forgot one important thing. There was one director, his name was Ed Sharon, who was from New York City, I think, who talked about when he would work with actors or with just people in general, if he disagreed with them, he would say so. I was bowled over. My family didn't do that. Now, we might talk among ourselves after the person with whom we disagreed left about why we disagreed with them, but we never said to them, well, I do not agree with you, because Mama was always afraid you would insult that person or he or she would become angry. So this was a new concept to me. Little did I know that it would come in so handy to me within just 2 months. When I got home, I went back to see Dr. Campbell, and I said to him, Dr. Campbell, I have this vague dizziness in my head. I don't know why it is. I just can't figure that out. He checked my eyes, and then he said, well, Frances, you may have an ear infection. I am going to send you to Dr. Kerry Moon in Charlottesville, Virginia. He is one of the best ear doctors we have. I agreed. Charlottesville was 4 hours from Martinsville, so I drove up there one day and saw Dr. Moon. His staff performed a whole lot of tests on me that I had never had before, tests to see if I had some type of infection in my ear. He called me into his office after I had finished them and said to me, Frances, you don't have anything wrong with your